Welcome to the Headset Podcast, a podcast focused on gravel cycling. Here, we'll interview gravel cyclists from various backgrounds, including industry professionals and regular Joes. We'll review industry equipment in a real-world application and provide race, ride, and event recaps from around the world. There's so much to discover in gravel cycling, so grab your drops and let's get graveling. Welcome to the Headset Podcast, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. I have a special guest on the Headset, JD Smith. JD and I met via the internet, of all places. Imagine that. While I was looking for an emergency place to stay in Emporia for one night, JD messaged me and we got to chatting. Then we were at the DT Swiss booth. I was talking to the DT Swiss folks at the expo, and JD was like, comes up. He was getting his wheels worked on. We started talking and he asked my name, and lo and behold, there we met in person.
out of 5,000 people standing around us.
Exactly. What an amazing opportunity to meet someone like that just by chance at a booth. You know, JD, how about you get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your story, and what brought you to Unbound the first time and what brought you back.
I guess my story is I grew up in Arizona in a little border town as a kid. I mean, we talk about riding gravel nowadays, right? As a kid, hell, all we rode on was gravel along the Colorado River and down into Alcodones and Mexico and that kind of stuff. And I can't even imagine a couple of 8-year-old boys going to Mexico now to get ice cream in the summertime and coming back. Life has a funny way of getting in the way. And as I got older and I navigated through my career in civil site work, roads, bridges, airports, highways, that's what I've done my whole life, from being a laborer to a general manager of a grading company. I ended up spending a lot of time behind a desk. You know, a lot of my career was 16, 17, 18-hour days, not really eating right, and was in the military, out of the military, spent some time overseas. And as life went on, I found myself a little over a year ago at 408 pounds. And I'm 6'2". And for me to have been weighing the right area, I'd have to have been 7'7". And so I knew the Monday after Easter on April the 18th of 2022 that I needed to take a hold of my life. I needed to become more body conscious, more physically fit and aware, and really work towards finding a way to exist, because the path that I was on was unsustainable. Not only unsustainable as my age gets older, but it was generally unsustainable. I was headed for an early grave. And that's what led me to, I had a mountain bike at that time, a Cannondale 29er that I had purchased in 2010. Didn't spend much time riding on it, but that number 408 scared me. And it scared me enough that I went home from a doctor's office from a meeting with blood pressure and lorazepam, anxiety medicine, and all this other stuff, and said, I can't do this anymore. So what are my options? Because the medicine the doctors are giving me for blood pressure and anxiety, and I chewed Copenhagen at the time and had for 40 some years, all this stuff was boiling up. And here's what I did in a 24-hour period. I threw my Copenhagen in the trash. I threw my lorazepam, propanolol, and probably 5 other medicines in the trash, and said, one of two things is going to happen. I'm either going to survive this and then I'm going to move forward. And I don't even know how, but I know that I don't want to live like this anymore. Or coming off of this medicine, the doctor said, you'll have a heart attack, it'll kill you. The body just doesn't quit stuff like this. And so my girlfriend said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm either going to survive or I'm going to go see God.
Pardon the interruption real quick, but just a reminder before you make any changes to your medical routine to check with your healthcare professional and medical professionals. JD was under the care of medical professionals while he made the changes to his medical routines described here in this video. Remember, major medical changes can cause adverse effects to your body. So please make sure you're consulting a medical professional before you make any changes to your medical routine.
And I survived. Here's the thing. I didn't sleep for about 6 weeks, other than an hour and a half or 2 hours, because the medicine coming out of my system had me, had my body in withdrawals that I guess would be similar to a drug addicted person, between the nicotine addiction, the addiction on the pharmaceuticals that had been given to me over the course of a lifetime. Lorazepam I had been taking since 2001. So you're talking 21 years of 1 to 3 milligrams of lorazepam twice a day.
It builds up in your.
I was lethargic.
Absolutely.
So I can remember my girlfriend and me taking my Cannondale for a ride probably 2.5 years ago at a little trail outside of Shelby, North Carolina. It was going to be a 20-mile ride. I rode about 8 miles and I had to stop. And I gave her the keys to my Chevy Tahoe and said, please go get my truck. I can't continue on. I had incredible leg cramps. I had no core muscle stamina. I was a mess. And that's what led me to YouTube and on the internet trying to figure out what exercise can I do. I first thought about CrossFit. And I thought, well, man, I don't want to run, and I'm not thrilled with the idea of jumping up and down off of a table. And what can I do that's less impactful? Swimming. Well, I don't want to swim to the end of the pool, turn around and swim back. It doesn't seem very entertaining to me. It seems rather boring. And I'm not a muscle head. So what are my options? Well, riding a bike. So I went to Trek and I bought a hybrid. I bought an FX2 and very inexpensive bike. I think I paid $700 or $800 for it.
Yeah, entry level hybrid bike. Yeah.
Yes. And I bought that from a shop in Spartanburg, South Carolina. And I started riding around my house. And I'll never forget, at that time, I lived in Shelby, North Carolina. And I remember leaving my house and riding to the subdivision next door to where I live and come back. And I don't know, I bet it was maybe 1.5 miles or 2 miles. And I remember having to walk up this hill that I have since rode on, since I've got, 1.5 years under my belt of riding. And I remember the grade being 4%. The last time I rode up it with my bike computer, and I never even got out of a gear. I just flew up the thing. But I can remember how hard that was. And I remember not knowing how to change my eating patterns. I was eating steak 3-4 times a week, fried potatoes, fried chicken, fried okra, almost everything was fried. And my diet changed to a pescatarian diet. Vegetables and fruit, seafood, fish. I don't eat any fried food anymore. No Oreos, candies, cakes, that kind of stuff. I really took a hold of my fitness from a food standpoint, and then began working on riding my bike and losing weight. So that went on for maybe 6.5, 7 months. I live at the bottom of Paris Mountain. My girlfriend lives about 20 minutes across town from me. And we started riding on the Swamp Rabbit Trail fairly regular. When I had gotten my weight down to 350 pounds, I purchased a steel frame, because we know steel is real, right?
Steel is real, brother.
I purchased a steel frame Kona Sutra touring bike. I bought Arkel panniers for the front and the back, and I bought a trailer made by Burley to plug into the back to pull my Australian Shepherd around. And the main thought was, I want to take a trip to Cape Cod. I'd never been to Martha's Vineyard, and I want to take my Kona Sutra, and I want to do a 10-day trip. And I think at 350 pounds, my fitness level would allow me to do that. And I did it. And It was incredible. And I parked at Woods Hole. I rode up and down to P-Town. I took the ferry to Martha's Vineyard. I spent a week over there, rode my bike, in Nantucket, and had a great time. So when I came home from that trip, I knew that I was finding a better fitness, and I knew that I was on the right track, but I also knew that I needed more direction than I was capable of providing for myself. So from the end of September into November, I still worked on my own, but I was spending a lot of time on YouTube looking at different diets and looking at workouts. And at Thanksgiving last year, Wahoo had a sale on the Wahoo kicker. It was basically about half price.
I got one then as well.
Yeah. And the bike shop that I utilize here in Greenville is called Free Hub Cyclist. He sold me my Wahoo kicker at the advertised price on the Wahoo site. And that allowed me to set up a pain den and start, with the Zwift and start working on that. So that went on through Christmas time. And then in January, I hired kind of a famous cyclist trainer in our area. He's trained a lot of people that's been in Paris-Roubaix and a lot of winners in North America. And his name is Jim Cunningham, and he's with Greenville Cycle and Multisport. And that was the best decision I could have made, because he gave me structure. First off, we figured out what my VO2 was, my FTP, and we actually figured out how to get me stronger on the bike. And then along with joining his group, I met a nutritionist, and she gave me some really good information. I've been working with Jim Cunningham since then, and I'll tell you, he provides interval workout, he provides interval training, pain training, he provides strength management training, and he gave me goals that seemed beyond myself. But every 6 to 8 weeks, I noticed a dramatic increase in my fitness level. It was stunning. I'm going to give you an example. Like I said, I live at Paris Mountain. To ride Paris Mountain from my house, you leave and travel towards Traveler's Rest. You get to Altamont Drive. You make a right. You go up Paris Mountain. You get to the top by the radio tower. Somebody has painted an orange line in the middle, and it says, "You have made it."
Nice.
Turn around, you go back down, you fly like a Learjet back down, and you go back to the house. The first time I did that, it took me 2 hours and 41 minutes. I did it the week before I came to vacation and went to Unbound, and I did it in 40 minutes.
Wow. What an improvement.
That's a 2 hour, fitness improvement literally in the window of 5 months.
Yeah, absolutely. It's amazing what working with a coach and a nutritionist can actually do for you. People swear by it all the time. And you're a great example of what a structured workout plan and working with a dedicated team can actually do to help turn not just your fitness around, but your whole life around. It's really great that you were able to find that. Such a amazing story. 5 months. You took 2 hours off of what's the elevation on Paris Mountain, just roughly?
I think from my house up there to the top and back is, I don't know, maybe 1,700 feet.
Yeah,
Something
that's
like that.
climb.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. If you're enjoying this or any of the other content that we've put out on the channel, please make sure to go ahead right now and hit the like and subscribe buttons. And don't forget, you can also support the channel through Patreon. Link is in the description of the video down below. Just a couple bucks a month can really help me get a long way on the channel. So anything you can spare would be great. I appreciate your support. And now back to the show.
I'll tell you what's interesting around here where we live in Greenville, and I think this is a great cycling mecca. And you live in Atlanta.
Yeah, not far away at all.
No, we are essentially neighbors. I could be at your house for dinner tonight.
Yeah, it's that close.
What's amazing here is my everyday ride on Saturday, my every Saturday ride is probably going to be somewhere between 4,000 and 7,000 feet of elevation gain. Now, I'm going to put that into perspective because I'm still 255, 58 pounds. I got another 60, 70 pounds to go to really get where I want. I don't know if you can see it, but in the corner right here on my board is used to be 408. It says 368, 259, 109, and 205. Those are numbers that mean something to me. That 109 is what I had lost by the time I went to Unbound, and the 205 is my goal to get to by Christmas time this year. I don't know if I'll get there or not. My body is going to tell me where I need to be, whether it's 186 or 235. But anyway, let me go back to this. So I was in Missouri for 4 days before I went to Emporia, Kansas. I was on vacation and I rode up and down the Katy Trail. I was in New Franklin, Missouri, and about 5 miles away is a little town called Boonville. And there was a big party on wheels going by that I didn't mean to catch, but I caught it, called the Peddlers Jamboree. And it's like a moving musical party. There's little bands set up at each town, and they go from Columbia, Missouri to Boonville, Missouri, and they have a big concert, and they do that on a Saturday. They all get hammered and spend the night, get up the next day, and go back to Columbia. It's really a sight to see. So I'm riding my gravel bike because, of course, I left my road bike and all that stuff here. I'm riding my gravel bike, the same one I'm in Unbound in. And I get to the bridge going over the Missouri River into Boonville, and I see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people walking their bikes up the bridge. And I told the guy I was riding next to, I said, well, the police must have the road blocked off and they're making everybody, walk their bikes over there. Well, lo and behold, when I get there, people are riding their bikes about 20 or 30 feet up the bridge and then stopping and getting off and pushing their bikes up over the bridge. And I thought to myself, well, that's the strangest thing I ever saw. And these are people a lot smaller than me. And so I go on the outside of the bridge. Billy, I never even got out of my gear. I was in my middle chain ring in the third gear. I went up over the bridge, over the other side, made a right-hand turn and went on down to the party. So I'm down there eating barbecue. Remember, I don't eat meat. I just have seafood. My nutritionist said, while you're gone for the next 2 weeks, eat whatever you want. Have a good time. So I'm eating barbecue. There's a guy that comes over and he goes, hey, mister, how in the Sam Hill did you come over that bridge? You got to weigh 250 pounds. I said, yes, sir. He goes, man, he goes, I was struggling. He goes, I had to walk up that thing. And I said, well, I don't know. I guess I just had a good day. But in my heart, I know that every Saturday I ride a loop that's 70 or 80 miles around DuPont, and it's got 7,000 feet of elevation gain. Or I take my road bike and I go up the Saluda grade and I go to the Wildflower Bakery and I get a cup of coffee or something and I ride around that area. And here's the deal. We have 9, 11, 15, 18% grade on all this stuff around here. And it hurts and it's hard, but it gets easier and it gets easier. The grades that we had on that bridge, the grades that you and me and several thousand other people saw at Unbound on the Beach and the Judge and B Hill and all these others, you know, there were people again walking up those, and I recorded on my GoPro every climb because I didn't want one person to say, no, JD, you couldn't have rode up that. Well, I did. I recorded the sign as I went by and I recorded the ride up it, and I didn't walk one climb on that route. And I attribute that to the training that Jim Cunningham put me through to prepare me for Unbound.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a very similar experience with my training and my experience at Unbound. Your story, JD, is amazing and inspiring. And I hope that people see the value in not just coaching, but cycling in general. Just, you know, for me, 5 years ago, I was almost 200 pounds myself. I'm 5'9" and a half. So 200 pounds on me is pretty good. I'm down to about 155 when I got home from Unbound. It took a lot off, but I've been cycling every day for 5 years. So very, you know, similar story. My fitness, I changed my eating habits. I am now a pescatarian. I eat fish, chicken, mostly. Don't eat a lot of fried foods at all. Very similar path that I've taken that you took to just increase fitness and riding that every day. You know, my training ground, not very different from yours. A little place we call Murder Creek out here. Don't know why it's called Murder Creek. I don't think I want to know why it's called Murder Creek. But our 60-mile loop is a 5,500 elevation gain, you know, and there are 15% grades in that. So yeah, we have very similar training grounds and experiences on our journey.
What was the moment where you said, I'm making a change? What was your moment?
I think I looked at myself one day, you know, and I was on a ride. I commute, for folks at home. I commute to work. My commute is 12 and a half miles each way. And I just was not happy with the way I felt. It was hard to ride my bike. It hurt. I went to the doctor. My cholesterol was at a level where he said, I should admit you to the hospital right now. You need to make some serious changes in your life. And, you know, my journey before cycling, I had a long bout with addiction, and I tackled that beast about 14 years ago, tackling it every day. But when it came to my health, you know, and the fact that he said, your heart rate should not be sustained at 205 when you're just leisurely riding your bike. You need to do something. That's when I decided I've got to change my eating habits. I have to be really intentional about what I eat, how much of what I eat that I do eat, and then the types of exercise I'm doing. For 3 years before I got on a bike, I spent in Taekwondo training, and I worked out an hour and a half, 4 times a week, high cardio, you know, got my black belt, but I was still putting on the pounds. Even an hour and a half, 4 times a week of high intensity cardio, I was eating the wrong foods. Lots of fried foods, lots of high fat, saturated fat foods. But I looked at it in such a way that, well, I'm exercising, so I can eat what I want, right? No, that was not at all true. So when my doctor told me you should go to the hospital, I should admit you, that's when it was to me, I have to do something, not just for myself, but for my family.
I think part of the number of you could be 393 and look at it and just keep rolling on the way you're doing, and 5 years later see 397 and whatever, and then but that number 4 something, that number 408, 455, 402, that was a whole new number, and it scared the hell out of me. And I'm going to tell you what else. There's an app called My Fitness app is what it's called.
Oh yeah, My Fitness app. Yep.
When I put my information in there just to see what it was, it said that I was 106 years old. That's how my body felt, was 106. I thought, well, how in the hell am I gonna? Nobody lives to be 106.
Not typically. That's an anomaly number.
Right. It was the things that I wanted to do. And now I will tell you this, I'm addicted to cycling. I would love to have had this addiction 20 years ago instead of a year and 4 months ago. And here's why. I feel like a boy again. There's a tree. I sent you the picture of a tree, I think.
Yeah, I'll throw it up.
There's a tree. And I got into the mud and I got into all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, all right. So I'm over on the side and I'm pushing my bike and I'm looking up there, and I've been walking about 20 minutes, and I'm like, all right, I get to that tree. Surely to God, we're good to go. I clean my tires up and we're good to go. So I get to the tree and it's at the crest of a hill. And now I've got to go down a hill, and it goes up, down, up, and a big sweeping curve to the right, back up a hill. And I'm looking at it, and it's about 3 more miles of just mud that is already ankle deep, and it's getting worse. And I looked down at my bike and I named my Niner Clodhopper. And I patted Claude on his little down bars. And I said, well, Claude, this is how it's going to be, son. And I said, if you don't mind, I'm going to clean your tires off real quick, and then I'm going to pick you up. And I picked Claude up and threw him on my shoulder. And as I started going down the hill, I started saying a Hail Mary. And
there were a lot of people saying some prayers out there.
To this guy, his name is Aaron Davis, and he was the man at the top of the hill taking pictures. Anyway, as I'm coming up the hill, Aaron took some beautiful shots of me. So as I finally am making it up there, I'm singing a Billy Joe Shaver song, and Aaron's chuckling. And he comments, he goes, are you really smiling singing Billy Joe Shaver? And I said, well, I got to sing something. Otherwise, you're just going to be in tears. And he said, can you stop for a minute so I can take a picture? And I said, not on your life. If you want a picture, you can take it now. And when I got to the top, I cleaned everything off. And the moment that I saw the rest of the mud from the view of the tree 3 miles behind me, that was my darkest moment on the entire course. And it wasn't even dark. It was only the realization that that tree provided me hope. I think there's a lot to be said for sometimes things happen the way they're supposed to happen. I would have never met you unless I was headed to Unbound, and we friended each other because we were both going. And literally out of all the thousands of people walking around, you and I were standing at the same place at the same time.
Happened for a reason, for sure.
Yeah, there's there for a reason, Billy. It's there for a reason. I can't explain it. I don't want to try. But here's the one thing that I want your viewers to take away from this.
All right, take us home.
If I can, you can. It's that simple.
Absolutely. Amen, brother. And not only can you, but you have now. You've proven you can do it. You've proven to yourself, and that's got to be a huge mental gain, right? Like for me, finishing that 200 miler was, wow, I did that.
Yeah.
I can do anything now. Like,
Right. And so here's the deal. Next year, I'm going back, God willing, and Unbound Lottery, I'm talking to you, and doing 200 miles. And if there's 40 miles of mud, then so be it. And it is what it is. And I'm looking forward to, when this is over with, inviting you to come up to a race here in Tryon here in a couple of months. And there's plenty of room on Paris Mountain.
absolutely, man. I'd love to come back to South Carolina and ride again. I recently did the Saluda Red Bank 100 up there. I finished 5th from last, but I finished. That was when that big hailstorm came through and
Oh yeah.
peanut butter. I'll do a whole nother show on that, but yeah, I would love to come up and ride with you, man. Take on Paris Mountain and see what else South Carolina can throw at me. It'd be a lot of fun. I've got some months off from races now, so my next actual race isn't until the fall. So I've got plenty of time to make the rounds.
Well, thank you very much for the kindness and the consideration and the invitation to visit. And I really appreciate it. I look forward to more time invested in gravel. And I just look forward to having just an enjoyable life in this environmental condition with which we find ourselves falling in love with more and more every time our wheels hit the tarmac of stone.
Yeah. Or mud.
Or mud.
Hate it when you're in it, love it when you're done, right? Like that's the way it goes.
Hey, good stories to tell.
Great stories to tell. And we have so many more stories we could tell. I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to have you back on this in the future, JD. Thanks so much for taking the time today to sit down with me, share your story, your passion, your love for cycling, and how it got you here. I am just so proud for you and of you. It's your journey is such an inspiration, and I hope so many hear your words. If I can, you can. What an amazing way to wrap it up today. Thanks so much for taking the time. I look forward to seeing you very soon.
Peace.
Brother.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Headset Podcast. This week's guest was JD Smith. JD is an avid cyclist with an inspirational story of perseverance and dedication to cycling. If you'd like to hear the full conversation that I had with JD, please join me over on Patreon. Patreon is a great way to support the channel and help it grow. Next week's guest will be Amy Welsh Hill, a local Atlanta gravel cyclist and triathlete. Just returning from the Escape Alcatraz Triathlon, we'll get her insights on that race and how gravel cycling helped prepare her for the endurance needed to complete such a grueling monster of a triathlon. Can't wait to talk to Amy and see you there. Until next week, folks, have fun, stay safe, and we'll see you on the gravel.